My job is to catalog the dead, not people, but places. I'm a corporate archivist, and my latest patient was the Gilded Cage, a department store that had been a palace of consumerism in the 50s and had been sealed shut since 1982. My task was to create an inventory of its final, forgotten assets before demolition. The silence in these places is what gets you first. It's not empty, it's heavy. It's the weight of 1,000,000 forgotten conversations, 1,000 different perfumes, the ghosts of desire for dresses that have long since turned to dust. The ground floor was a breathtaking mausoleum of retail, populated by an army of silent, headless plastic figures. I walked through the main aisle, my footsteps echoing in the vast space. It was a beautiful, sad, and perfectly still world. I felt like the last person on Earth. The first anomaly was a small one. A single mannequin in the women's formal wear section had been moved. It was a female figure, originally posed with its arms straight down. Now, one of its plastic arms was bent, its hand resting on its hip in a pose of casual confidence. I knew it was different because I had photographed that exact section an hour earlier. I checked my digital camera. Sure enough, in my previous photo, its arms were straight. I assumed it was a prank by the security guard who let me in. Or maybe the old joints of the mannequin had simply given way. I pushed the arm back down with a stiff, plastic clack, made a note in my log about structural instability, and tried to put it out of my mind. But the new pose was so specific, so human, the changes became more frequent and more personal. The mannequins weren't just moving, they were copying me. I have a habit of leaning against a counter when I check my notes. I turned around one afternoon to find a mannequin across the aisle had been repositioned into that exact pose. Leaning against a glass display case, I always drink my coffee with my left hand, pinky slightly extended. The next morning, a male mannequin in menswear was holding a fallen coffee cup from a nearby display, its plastic fingers arranged in a perfect, delicate imitation of my own. It was a slow, meticulous, and silent mimicry. The entity in this place wasn't just moving objects, it was studying me. It was learning how to be human, one stolen gesture at a time. The mannequins in this store were supposed to be featureless, a blank canvas for the imagination of the shopper. Smooth, egg-like heads. But that started to change. I was photographing a display in the cosmetics department. Through my camera's zoom lens, I noticed something on the face of a female mannequin, a faint mark. I went closer. It was a single, tiny, perfectly placed brown freckle, painted with what looked like dried nail polish. It was in the exact same spot as the freckle just above my own lip. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my face. The next day, another mannequin had a faint, reddish tint to its plastic head, mimicking my auburn hair color. It wasn't just learning my gestures anymore. It was learning my face. It was slowly, patiently, painting its own blank canvas with pieces of me. The store had an old, building-wide PA system. Most of the speakers were dead. But one evening, as I worked near the old dressing rooms, one of them crackled to life. A soft, whispering voice breathed out of it. It was my voice. It was a recording of me from earlier that day, humming a tuneless little song to myself while I worked. But the recording was wrong. It was distorted, reedy, like a cheap synthesizer trying to replicate a human voice. It was an echo, an imperfect, artificial copy. The entity wasn't just watching me, it was listening to me. It was recording me, and it was practicing being me. The sound of my own absent-minded humming, turned into a ghostly, electronic whisper, was the most terrifying thing I had ever heard. I needed answers. I broke into the old, locked security office in the basement. It was a time capsule from the 80s. I found the last night watchman's logbook from 1982, the year the store closed. The entries started out normal. 10 p.m., all secure. 12 a.m., all secure. But the final week's entries were a descent into madness. "They're moving again," he wrote, his handwriting growing frantic. "The one in shoes has my limp. The one in hats is standing the way I do when my back aches. They're watching. They're learning." The last entry, on the night the store closed forever, was a single, terrified, scrawled sentence. "There's a new mannequin in the window display. It has my face. It has my uniform. I have to get out before they forget who the real one is." He was never seen again. The store hadn't just closed, it had claimed its last employee. I knew I was next. I had to get out. I ran to the main entrance, but the heavy, reinforced doors were chained shut, and my key wouldn't work. The entity knew I was trying to leave. I was trapped. I stumbled back into the main showroom, and that's when I saw it. In the center of the main aisle, where there had been nothing before, stood a new mannequin. It was my exact height, my exact build. It was posed in my default stance, hands in pockets, and its head. It was a perfect, smooth, featureless blank. It was an empty canvas, a perfect, life-sized, three-dimensional slate, and it was waiting for the final details of its new owner to be filled in. As I stared at my blank copy, the other mannequins in the store began to move, not subtly. They turned, with the stiff, scraping sound of old plastic, their headless forms all rotating to face the blank mannequin in the center. They were a silent, headless congregation, turning to witness a birth. The air grew thick and heavy, a shimmering, heat haze distortion. The raw form of the echo began to rise from each of the old mannequins, flowing in shimmering rivers of energy through the air. It was a transference. The entity was pulling all of its stolen pieces of identity, all of its learned gestures and features from its practiced dummies, and it was pouring all of that stolen humanity into its one, perfect, final vessel. The blank mannequin's face began to form, a mouth, a nose, my mouth, my nose. It was happening. It was stealing my face. I didn't have a weapon. I couldn't fight it, but the watchman's last words echoed in my head, single quotes, ... before they forget who the real one is. It wasn't about perfection. It was about authenticity. In a final, desperate act, I smashed a nearby glass counter with my flashlight. I took a sharp shard of glass, closed my eyes, and I drew it across my own cheek, a sharp, searing line of pain. I opened my eyes. The mannequin me was almost complete. It was perfect, a flawless, idealized copy of me. But I was not perfect anymore. I had a flaw, a wound, a story that it could not copy. As it turned its newly formed, perfect face towards me, its eyes fell upon the fresh, bleeding cut on my own cheek, and its perfect, serene expression shattered into a silent, glitching scream of confusion. The copy was now obsolete. The ideal was ruined. The energy receded. The mannequins froze. The presence was gone. Its attempt at a perfect birth a failure. The front doors of the store swung open with a groan. I walked out into the cool night air, never looking back. They demolished the gilded cage a month later. They said the crews found something strange on the final day. A single, brand new mannequin, standing alone in the center of the ruins. It looked just like a normal mannequin, except for one thing. It had a single, tiny, hairline crack running down its cheek. I carry the real scar to this day. A thin, white line. It's my proof. It's the story that separates me from the echo. It's the beautiful, painful, wonderful flaw that proves I am real.